Thank you everybody for joining. This is Julia Santagata, one of the Automation System Group Managers here at Rumsey Electric. Today we're joined by Mace Bittman, one of our automation software specialists, who's going to talk to us a little bit about lifecycle planning for your automation equipment. Mace has a multitude of experience, 20 plus years, and quite a few positions. So with that, I will turn it over to Mace.
Thank you, Julie. All right. Well, thank you all for joining. As Julia said, my name is Mace P. Bittman. If some of you don't know me, I've been with Rumsey just approaching my 7th year and 10 years at a similar distributor. And I was actually with an OEM for over 5 years before that. So for those of you on the call that are OEMs, I've had your experiences as well. All right. So product life cycles. Info you need to know. This is a good summary of what we're going to cover today. First, where do you go to find out the current status? We're going to talk about hardware and software. And then also, if you have what's defined in a moment as end of life or a discontinued product, we're going to give you some suggestions of the best approach. And going along with that, I'm going to mention what is current and give you some history and some guidance on futuristic suggestions. So, as products lifestyle, especially with Rockwell Automation, they have done a really, really fantastic job of giving you all the information they can on many, many, many products. To start with, this website, when you receive the files, and the files along with some other documentation will be available later on when this, along with the recording of this, you'll find that you can click on this link and go to Rockwell's Lifecycle page. On there, you'll see 4 different definitions of status. One is active. That is almost always the most current product that is available, and the expectancy of that is to be many years to come available. It's not expected to go obsolete next year, for instance. Active mature is a little different. It has a different scope. It's been out for a long time in most cases, or even if it hasn't been a real long time, another product has come up beside it. So you definitely want to, if you have a choice between active and active mature products, active would be the choice of product. Then there's end of life. This is definitely a situation or a status, if you will, of your product where you'd want to make some sort of planning to get that into a more current, newer product. And discontinued is even more urgent. That is something you definitely want to give it more urgency. If you have a discontinued product, that means you cannot get it brand new anymore for certain, but also if you want to send it to Rockwell for repairs or exchanges, there may be some issues with that, and it just simply may not be repairable. So those are some of the footnotes down the bottom, outages, things like that. So let's take a look. On that web page, if you go to that link, you'll see this entry where you put in a catalog number. Catalog number and the word bulletin I'll use throughout the presentation, and you probably heard that in the past if you're used to this, are pretty much the same thing. In other words, bulletin 1771 that's shown there. So one example is the PLC5 processors that are out there. So simply I typed in 1785-L80E, and you can see that was discontinued a few years ago. One thing to keep in mind is in a lot of cases, Rockwell's going to give you a replacement suggested product, as shown in the lower right. It says migrate to RA Logix. When they say Logix in their terminology, that is specifically talking about a 5000 product, meaning it programs with the older version RSLogix 5000 or today's version Studio 5000 Logix Designer. They are not saying go to a PLC 5 product of anything newer. They're not saying RSLogix 500, and in most cases not Micro 800. They specifically mean Logix is a 5000 product or a compact or CONTROLLOGIX, which I go through real soon. Another good example is the SLC 500 family. Specifically, I typed in SLC 1747 L553. This is the largest of the SLC Ethernet controllers. And one thing we want to point out, which is not on the website at the moment, is that it's actually scheduled to be discontinued in 2025. We expect to see a notice in 2023 for end of life. So you have a couple years of notice from them. Now, specifically, they will give as much information as possible back, then, but we're trying to get ahead of that because we got some earlier information preview. So, as you can see on the lower right, it says migrate to CMX solution. CMX is in short for COMPACTLOGIX, which again is part of the Logix family. Now, all of these different methods of typing into the website is great, but if you want something more automated, there's a software product that Rockwell sells, part of the FACTORYTALK suite, which is FACTORYTALK Asset Center. Now, that has a lot of features, and I could certainly go for an hour and a half talking about that, but to shorten this call, we just want to zero in on the audit features, how it can actually automatically scan and report of end of life. So it can be set up, network to your devices, connect to many different products on a computer, and then give you a report. Where does it get the source? It goes to the PCDC, which we're about to review. It will give you different colors, very similar to the life cycle page, colors and end of life, active, things like that, and give you some sort of notice of action, courses of action. I mentioned software briefly here. If you have to upgrade Windows, let's say XP to Windows 7, Windows 10, that might be a reason why you get into knowing more about what the software you're running is. You might change the computer. Usually when you change a computer, it's going to have a newer software as an operating system, such as Windows 10 is pretty popular today. Then also, Rockwell software-based RS Power 32, for instance, has been obsoleted for a number of years. And we're giving you a little bit of a heads up here where RS-332, we don't have any dates. It could be still many years out there. But we just want to focus on this just for a moment that RS-332 only runs on Windows 7 32-bit. So if any of the other point 1 and 2 you're considering, you cannot run RS-32 on a Windows 10 system. So just keep that in mind when you have that software in your plans. And then the other reason, you just might want to upgrade the software of Rockwell to have more features. For instance, RSLogix 5000, I mentioned when it went to Studio 5000 Logix Designer, there are a lot of feature enhancements, and certainly with the later versions, 31 and so on. Then you also might want to change or upgrade because of security. There's a lot of embedded security that these older components, older Windows versions, whatever, just does not have and support. Right, let's get to the PCDC. By definition, I get to ask this probably every week or two. What does PCD stand for? Well, it's Product Compatibility and Download Center. This is what the home page looks like, and there's a home page link for you. But more specifically, if we want to type in our Windows versions, let's do that. So if you hit that other selection on that main page about products, you'll get this page, and to make all that easier, there's another link for you for the actual software product replacements here. When I say that, what I'm really talking about, one of the many calls I get is, hey, I'm going to Windows 10, will my Studio 5000 or Logix, whatever software, run on Windows 10? Well, here is one example. We select the product. I'm going to show Studio 5000. I'll type it in. I'll hit the search button. I'll get the results of all the Studio 5000 products. And specifically, almost always somebody wants to know about Logix Designer. Now, of course, if it's Studio 5000, that compatibility goes across the board for what you're about to review. So, Studio 5000 at the top, and you can see on the right, it goes from on the right to left for the later versions. If you have version 29 of Studio 5000 Logix Designer, if it works, it's really just an accident. You really want to upgrade to something later, 30, 31, and honestly, 32 has some feature enhancements you definitely benefit from. If you also notice where it says Windows 10 Professional version 64-bit, version 1903, and so on, Microsoft did some tricks to us and actually have build numbers of different versions. Rockwell is slowly going through all of them. This page is actually quite long, and more are getting approved. Now, here's the other thing, my friends. I have not heard anybody call me and say, look, I have the build number that's not on the list and it doesn't work. It sure seems like it's just that it hasn't been tested yet, not that it won't work with any of the Windows 10 professionals. But this is definitely a place to go to now and then if you're still in Windows 7 and waiting to go to Windows 10, and if you have to wait for a certain build or whatever. Okay. Then this RS-332 example I was talking about, if you notice, Windows 10 is not supported, nor will it be. Okay, so the latest version was 7.6. They came out for a few features, so it will not work with this particular version. Okay, so this is what you would see if you have a software package that is not compatible with the Windows version you're looking at. All right. So to upgrade, you have to. I strongly suggest that you take a list of all the control hardware that you plan to upgrade. Then at minimum, map out what you have in that cabinet, or maybe it's a few cabinets together, just to have some sort of baseline for how they all communicate together. Then it's a good idea to find or create a functional diagram, or simply have some text of step-by-step descriptions of the system functions. Then finally, find any of the programming code that you may have in the devices, whatever it is, HMI, PanelView Plus, umbrella control, PLCs, anything like that. All of these are good steps prior to ripping and replacing out what you have. If all of this is really overwhelming, or you just don't have the time, keep in mind that Rumsey has offerings for this, for our site serving offerings, and please contact us to get more information on that. We basically go out, look at all the pertaining upgrades you want to do, or you could do the whole plant and give you full recommendations. Whatever scale you'd like, we can take care of for you. All right. When we're talking about planning, you want to plan the upgrade that gives you the most amount of functionality, of course, within your budget. When you're also thinking about planning, you want to make sure that you upgrade to an expandable product. You might want to make sure that you want to get a processor maybe that handles a little more I/O or a little more I/O count, even if it isn't needed today, again, with budget allows. This one is, I must get calls on this every week or two on sequences or how you upgrade each product. For instance, you have one of those old SLCs. It's in service now, it's obsoleted or about to be, you want to change it out. But the HMI is a standard PanelView, which is also obsolete or up. Some people try to change just one and the other. There are ways to do that. Companies such as ProSoft have great gateways to give you communication bridges between the two, but I find it's very, very time-consuming in some people's instances, and they're much happier when they change both products at once. Just a little extra, FYI, and of course we can always talk about details later. So specific with the products, we want to choose the best product for your needs, and I'm going to show you some pathways for that. One advantage to choosing Allen Bradley I found, especially years ago when I was in Allen Bradley, is the scalability for it is just fantastic, and you'll find that you can find something for today, but it will certainly be large enough, for the future. All right. So as far as sizing of the system, Micro 800, it's great for small products, small projects, lower I/O count. We're finding a very good track run with that particular product. Medium to large, I would certainly stress to consider the COMPACTLOGIX if it's close to Micro 800, even if the Micro 800 can handle it. Just the programming ease and some other, again, scalability or able to enlarge it later in the future. Medium to large or medium size to plant-wide or enterprise level, some people hear that word. Certainly it could be compact or CONTROLLOGIX as well. In most instances, though, when you're talking about plant-wide control systems, you'd like to go into the CONTROLLOGIX family. Well, when we're talking about PLCs, let me tell you what's current out there. The Micro 800s, again, they have a small to large size. Programs with CCW or Connected Components Workbench. Then there's the MICROLOGIX family. Some of you might be familiar with that, as well as the SLC 500s I mentioned earlier. The MICROLOGIX has the current products right now is the 1100, 1200, 1400, and then the selects on the right. Now I say that, but the 1200 has been announced for 2021 end of life. So if you have any MICROLOGIX 1200s, please give us a call. We'll help you out. Then also, as I mentioned earlier, a little bit later, we expect 2023 to be the year to lose start losing the service or of the SLC 500s. As far as COMPACTLOGIX, all of those are current. On this slide here, the L1 came out almost about 10 years ago, but it's still widely used today. It comes in 3 major sizes on the left, which I call the dual cores. They have 2 cores, in other words, in there, and then the 5380 and 5380S and 5480, we'll briefly go through those functions. The ones to the right are the later current versions, and I'll explain a few details there. Then we have CONTROLLOGIX, 1756 bulletin number, the L7, L8, and then they have the L8S safeties. So, I briefly mentioned about MICROLOGIX, but I definitely want to show you some more details there. For instance, today, the 1100, 1400, and 1200 are shipping. Again, 1200 will, in a few years, a couple of years, I guess a year and a half, I should say, will go into end of life and then be obsolete, of course, some period after that. My personal feeling, if you have any of these that are on the screen, except for the 1400, you might want to do some action. The reason why I mention that is the sales of the 1400 are much, much, much higher than all the rest of the MICROLOGIX. And they did just go through a ROPAS change on the 1400, so I suspect that will be the longest one that will stay in this family before it goes into end of life. So if you have any of these 1000s, 1500s currently, that is definitely an urgent status in your head, please, that you want to get this migrated out to something newer. So migration options. The 800 a little more expanded here. You can see where they have different sizes, really, really small to larger. And then the top right, you can see where the 870 is the same as the 850, if you've heard of those. And it's only been out for about a little over a year, I believe. It has twice the memory and twice the I/O capabilities. And that's pretty cool if you think about it, because the 850 was pretty good for a small controller, had a lot of capabilities, but now the 870 has even more. So we talked about SLC 500s a little bit, but let's get down to the dirty details, as they say. This product was started somewhere in the fixed I/O range around 1991, okay? All those SLC fixed I/Os, by the way, have been obsoleted years ago. There are some options with any of these on the right, but very often the stock is so low, it's really a time to go into some other product line. So I put some dates on the right. As you can see, some are already gone, some are expected in that 2023 and then gone completely in 2025. Now, one cool part is with version 12 that came out of RSLogix 500, if some of you use that but don't have the latest version, in version 12, you can actually do a save as to an ACD file. And for those of you who don't know, an ACD file is the project code that you put into a compact or CONTROLLOGIX. I did one, if any of you have seen some of my videos, I did do a video pre-version 12 in RSLogix 500 where I probably do about 5 or 6 steps to go from an RSLogix 500 project into an ACD file and then download it to a COMPACTLOGIX. Well, I did make a new video, and it should be coming out fairly soon, that shows the usage of version 12. The cool part is when you do save as ACD, it goes right through all the steps, and it has 2 options. You can reuse some of the 1746 I/O, or you can rip and replace all the I/O and use something more current. The most recommended would be a COMPACTLOGIX 5069, for instance. So circling back to planning, you could certainly go to CONTROLLOGIX if you're going to rip and replace. Great platform. Works really well in single systems for the COMPACTLOGIX or even CONTROLLOGIX. I know some people do. Or a large I/O, that's just the scope of both of these platforms, really, really handle either very well, even large. Build-in-mind controls level, enterprise level, absolutely. Most people go control, but these COMPACTLOGIX are getting larger and larger, as I show shortly in some slides. So, speaking of COMPACTLOGIX, the ones on the right, some of these have been or will be discontinued very, very, very soon. Here's the easy part, my friends. If it has a serial port on the controller, it is or will be discontinued. So again, any serial port on the controller, it's going to be or has been already discontinued. So that would be a course of action. Okay? Newer controllers, the 2nd gen, These have been out, again, 10 years, but they're still current, and they should be for a number of years. They have a USB port on the face of them, again, to help you identify. There's other functions, reasons why they're there. Then finally, the third gen. This has only been out for a few years, has the quad-core design, much, much faster, and I show you a few slides because this is really ideally the product you want to go to from any of the ones on the right or some of those SLC 500s we talked about. So let's take a deeper look. And I'm saying 5069 instead of the 1769. Well, again, around 2004, the 1769 family came out. It's a great product. We've sold thousands of them. The bus, though, is only serial, and some people don't realize that goes between the modules. So that's why high-speed counters had to be local, and there were some other limitations of having multiple communications on that bus. So many features of that was really desired in the 5069, as well as extended tag information. And that's another subject, but essentially you can put all these extra informations and descriptions in a tag, and a 5380 processor can make it available, and then newer PanelViews can display it. The other cool part is we've been waiting for years for 2 Ethernet ports on a processor that has separate MAC addresses, allowing 2 IP addresses. So these new 5069s can do that, and that's definitely really excited. The rest is very nice to have, high-speed communication. The I/O is in microseconds instead of milliseconds, all of that. One of the biggies, though, for you guys that love structured text that have been using 1769s currently, the structured text and all the other languages, they operate pretty much the same. You really cannot see the difference of execution. So that lag you might see from really large programs in structured text goes away. Excuse me. A few other details. The memory usage is pretty cool. Instead of worried about application size, you had to give it 30, 40% kind of what they call throttling room. You can go real high up to 98, 99% of the usage memory, which effectively might allow you to buy a smaller controller to do the same function for 1769. Supports a lot of emotion, as you can see, and the larger version of the controller does 180 Ethernet nodes. So that would be 180 drives, 180 remotely controlled flex I/O, point I/O, things like that, or mixtures. Quick stats on some of the products that occurred with version 31. Because this processor actually outperformed what Rockwell originally expected, version 30 versus 31 and up, they increase the node count. And that's because this processor can handle an awful lot of executions and communications. One of the cores is actually dedicated just to communications, so that's why they are able to increase the node count. So again, that larger controller can do 180 Ethernet connections in the Project I/O tree. Then another sort of big brother, if you will, is the COMPACTLOGIX 5480 controller. This is what people have been asking for forever. It is a high-speed 5069 controller, 4-core, and then another 2 cores dedicated to Windows. In short, this has 4 Ethernet ports, a video port, a DPI, and USB connections for half computer and half PLC. It runs all the 5069 I/O. All right, now larger controllers. Earlier I did on the website, I put in a PLC5 L80, showed how it was obsolete. Well, they've been around for a long time, and actually before I've been playing with PLCs, the PLC5 became out in production. Let's just be real clear, all PLC5 and I/O and the racks have been obsoleted for a number of years now, okay? If you have any of these in production, I stress really try to get this migration plan going in your head. Talk to us, whatever you need. Some of these components, in fact, actually most can't even be repaired anymore. Again, it's just been out there for a long time. The chipsets, the manufacturing of it is just so old. And as I mentioned with RSLogic 500 and on my video, RSLogic 5 can also do a save as long as you have version 10 or later, to an ACD file. It walks you through and then helps you select newer components to change your PLC5 project to CONTROLLOGIX. So I found that was pretty cool. Okay, so we're talking about CONTROLLOGIX now, the first gens. 1760 L61s, the 63s, anything that has a 6, so 1756 L6 anything has been obsoleted. And just like the COMPACTLOGIX, if it has a serial port, it's been obsoleted. This isn't going to be, it already has been. I actually got a question last week, somebody misunderstood that some of the larger units were available. Not the case with the CONTROLLOGIX. The next gen all have USB ports, dual cores, very good processors, currently very popular for redundancy systems. And then there's the L8, third gen, if you will, which has 4 cores in it. And in case some of you know this product a little bit, but didn't know that the safety processors actually came out now with its partner. Scope and all the CONTROLLOGIX processors. If you notice real quick, the center shows a CONTROLLOGIX with multiple processors. One of the features is you can have multiple processors in a rack. Maybe you want to isolate them for speed or just organization purposes, whatever. Some different networks and covers, ControlNet, and so on. And then this is one of my favorite features. CONTROLLOGIX actually offers where you can program the primary, and in milliseconds it programs the secondary. When you're online with this, for those of you that know programming, it's completely transparent. You log on to one controller, online edits, doesn't matter. You program the primary, instantly it programs the secondaries. If anything happens to the primary, whether it's Ethernet, whether it's powered down, lightning strike kills the Ethernet port, whatever, the health is noticed and it flips and does what's called a crossover instantly to the secondary. I've seen some instances in many tech, it really depends on program size, but almost always it's well under 10 milliseconds when it trips. When that occurs, your I/O, all your SCADA systems, whatever, have no idea that it's on the primary, secondary. And I briefly talk about remotely controlled I/O. I won't spend much time today, but I'd love to talk to you offline if you'd like. This is just a quick summary of the current remotely controlled I/O devices that are out there. Okay, talked about PLC 5. One of the cool part is they came up with a really nice wiring system to go from a PLC 5 to CONTROLLOGIX. You still can control some of the I/O if the budget doesn't allow to change everything. Each PLC 5 rack can be changed out physically in a half hour. I've seen this done. And then if there's some issues with the programming, maybe you did your conversion and it's not performing the way you expect or need, reversing back is really easy as well because you're not cutting wires, pulling things, all of that. So some stages could be on a large system. This one is a PLC 5 controlling 3 separate remotely controlled I/O racks, or RIO. Some of you people may know what that is. Phase 1, you convert the program, put it in the CONTROLLOGIX rack, and use a DHRIO card to communicate to that network. You can do it something called listening mode. Make sure it doesn't control the I/O yet, but just see if you're, to check your code, it's really a nice setup to do this first. And so on. Once you feel good, you change actually the host controller out. You can still control it out, the remote I/O network. Most people, after they have the new controller, would want to change the HMI. Now, this does circle back to what I was saying earlier. It's this stage, some people want to change, when they put the CONTROLLOGIX in, they want to change the HMI at the same time. It really depends on the project and all that, and that's a discussion we can have with you. So that's all said. Of course, now you've got Ethernet backplane for other devices, but now it's time to change out the I/O. You can change out all the I/O racks to CONTROLLOGIX racks with the wiring system, and it works out really well. Once, if you notice, you're still controlling remote I/O. Once you have all of them connected to Ethernet, now you can just change out to Ethernet to those racks instead of the remote I/O networks. And then, such as ProSoft devices, they have a great Ethernet to remote I/O gateway product. We sell many of those, and it's really nice in case you have other products that you can't change out yet. Now, very similarly, we talked about SLCs becoming obsolete soon. They have a wiring harness. We're expecting them this month, and I always like to be a little conservative. Those of you who know me will say May. But the cool part is this is the same scheme where you change out the slick hardware, and you don't have to rewire anything other than the terminal strips, where there's one on the top and bottom for the SLC 1746 terminal strips. Then you put in the like or matched I/O module, and now you just change the program, and off you go. I do have to caution you, there was a couple modules that aren't out yet, so it might not be 100% there yet. But for some of you that want to get changing, I'd still recommend that. We can get around the other modules that are out yet, and we can certainly come to that when they're released. All right, let's get into HMI's a little bit. Quick little picture of history. Way back when, the PanelView Classic, then there was the Standard. Most of you probably know that. It was PanelView 32 if you've been working with some of these older ones. Then they came out with the CRT version, enhanced, nice and bright screens and all that. Then the PanelView Plus came out, and that was a completely new generation that everybody is excited about. And then the smaller version, the Plus, compact. Then the PanelView Plus 6 came out, which is and that was somewhere around 2011, I believe, came out. And it was just phenomenal, faster than the original PanelView Plus, and of course, light years faster than the old standard PanelViews. Well, as evolution would have it, we're expecting the end of life of this next year. Okay? Actually, I apologize, I meant discontinued next year. So we are telling people to start replacing these now. This is what they look like if you're not sure what I'm talking about. Plus, we'll send out more notices on this. But the bottom line is, if you have a PanelView Plus 6, we do want to stress that now is the time to start planning to migrate that into something else. What do you go to? Well, depending on size and other things, let's take a look. If you have a small single controller usage, you might get away with the PanelView 800 on whatever you need to change out, because there were many PanelView Plus 4 inches and 6-inch units. There's also on-machine capables. I'll show you what that's talking about, but it's essentially if you want to be near something that is like a hydraulic arm, has a dead man switch and all that. If you have a medium to large system, you'd certainly want to start considering the PanelView Plus 5000 or the PanelView Plus 7. And certainly if it's a medium to plant-wide control system where you might have many HMIs that are all coordinated in one system, that's where FACTORYTALK View Site Edition can come into play. So the PanelView 800, quick little picture of it. Originally it was just for Micro 800s, but now it does connect to the 1769 controllers. The mobile view is on the right I was talking about. On the back of it, it has a dead man switch. That's if you need to get near something that would, I don't want to use the word dangerous, but it would be a hazard if you were hit by an arm or whatever. That's what the mobile view is great for, and I can certainly talk to you about that. It has a wired, tethered connection for the e-stop and communication. Then there's the PanelView Plus 7. As I started to mention earlier, this is the next generation after the PanelView Plus 6. In a lot of cases, if you have a PanelView Plus 6, you just change the project for PanelView Plus 7. And if it's Ethernet especially, it's very easy to migrate to a PanelView Plus 7. We do not have any end of life on the PanelView Plus 7, even though they are Windows CE versions. But if you think you're going to go over and revamp the application, change a lot of screens, whatever, or you have a new application, we're leaning toward the PanelView 5000 more and more. The PanelView 5000 has two main families, the 5300 and the 5510, excuse me, 5310 and the 5510. There's a lot of cool features that very, very fast. That is the long-term project type of PanelView. So, confused a little bit at all? Don't worry about it. Rocco did a great chart to help you out. First, again, like always, determine what you need. Then there's a feature chart, and then give us a call or we can help you choose what to identify with the product. This is a little more zoomed in, but it's way too big to put in the presentations. And actually it has multiple sizes. The bottom line is, though, it has a feature set on the left and the products on the top, and it should zero in on what kind of products you're looking for and by feature set, and then give us a call. We'll have more discussion with you. But I certainly want to stress that if you want to have a new project with a new HMI, it wants to be in the 5000 PanelView. Most of the features are available today, version 7 of firmware. We're expecting hopefully in another 6 months or so, and that will give us very, very similar features to the PanelView Plus. Again, give us a call about applications. We'd like to help you with that. And then finally, the plant-wide systems. This is a really nice, superior system to all other HMIs. There's a lot of advantages to this. The coolest part is you can program a screen the end client user can just go out of that screen that was modified, go back to it, and the change is there. So it is essentially like an online, for those of you that know processors and you do online edits, this is similar to the online editing of HMI'S. There's no reason to take the system down, download a new project file to it, and then launch it. This is all hot swapping information. So you can make a modification and so on. There's a lot of redundancies. Last I read, you can have 50 servers, which can't imagine that being needed, but that's what the system supports, as well as 50 clients connecting to it. So you have one place to program, and this can be distributed throughout your entire plant for one set of HMI servers and then distributed. And something I don't notice here is some of you people are pretty savvy and understand how all this works and talk about thin clients. We have several thin clients options, as well as Thin Manager that Rockwell acquired, and we can actually serve up through Thin Manager systems. I think that's pretty much it. All right, I know it's a lot to digest. So if you're like, wow, Mace, I didn't get half of that, that's okay. Give me a call, send me an email. We can go through this individually. And I also like to mention that there are other Tech Talks or Locked In series. This is just the first or third one, I believe, that has occurred so far. So I encourage you to go to this website or just our website and find some of the other ones that are of interest to you. So I really want to thank you for your time, and I think we have some time to open up for some live questions.
Hey, I got a question here. It talked about saving a 500 file as an ACD file if you were going to convert from, say, a SLIC to a compact or CONTROLLOGIX. Is there an option to save that, I guess, as a file that can be used in a micro 800?
I think Dave Florist is also on the phone. Dave, is there within Connected Components, is there an import feature or anything that would assist there?
Yes, there's a MICROLOGIX library converter tool in Connected Components Workbench, and you can save your MICROLOGIX file as a .slc, I think, or a .lib.
Okay.
And import it into Connected Components Workbench. It'll do the conversion for you, so you don't have to rewrite all the code.
And
fantastic, Dave. Thank you.
Great. Then you'd be able to use it in a micro 800 product.
Okay, thanks. Nice presentation, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for joining.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question on the new 5500 HMI'S.
Sure.
Are they rated for any classified areas? Because I know the PanelView Plus 7s are rated for Class 1 and 2 Div 2, which is very helpful for us. So I didn't know if, by chance, that the 5500s, last I checked, they weren't, but if that's something that maybe I missed or maybe they're thinking of adding.
I do believe that it's in the roadmap, although I don't think it is out yet. But Mace, do you want to double check on that and get back to Jen?
Absolutely, yes.
Mace,
Awesome.
This is Steve Huck. If
Hey.
you can hear me. Hey, how are you? The PanelView 5500 terminals are Class 1 Div 2 groups A, B, C, and D.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they going to do any Class 2 on
In
that?
other words, I'm sorry, I should say that correctly. 5510 and 5310 are the two model numbers. Steve,
Yes,
did you
and
hear
they
55s?
are rated for Class 1 Div 2 groups A, B, C, and D.
They are.
Just
Okay,
Class
excellent.
1, no Class 2 in
No.
the mix, possibly?
Not as of this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. That's great.
Do we have any other questions that we can answer while we're on? So if not, we'll go ahead and sign off. We will be sending a follow-up email in the next day or so. It will have a recording as well as the slide deck for reference. I think some of these slides might be helpful with the different part numbers and their current status, and also some of the migration guides that are available. So keep your eyes out for that email. As May said, feel free to hit that link and look at the rest of the Locked In webinar series that are coming up every Tuesday and Thursday from the Rumsey Specialist team. And thank you. Thanks, Mace. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe and healthy.